See that SUV stuck up there? Yeah, that's Karen's. She kept parking on my farm road like she owned the place, so I used my tractor, and a little bit of physics, to put her $90,000 luxury ride exactly where it couldn't block me anymore. And the best part? I didn't break a single law doing it. That was the morning everything finally snapped into place. It was just after sunrise, that soft orange light stretching across the corn rows, painting long shadows from the windbreak trees behind my barn. The air was still cool, the kind of cool that hangs on just long enough to remind you summer hasn't won yet. I didn't hear Karen first, I heard the deputy. The slow crunch of gravel, then silence. Then a crackle of a radio. That's when I knew the sheriff's department had arrived. I stepped out from under the big oak and looked over the scene like it was a photograph in some county newsletter. Karen's white Escalade sat crooked on the wide fork of the old tree stump I'd used as a cradle. The rear end lifted a couple feet off the ground, the rear wheels hanging freely. The front wheels pointed downward into a shallow rain-cut ditch from last night's storm. Not a dent on it. Not a scratch. Not a blown tire. Just stuck. Technically, perfectly stuck. The deputy's cruiser rolled to a stop on my gravel road, dust drifting up behind it like slow-moving smoke. He stepped out, took his hat off, and just stared for a long second. I didn't blame him. It's not every day you get called out for a suspended vehicle and find a spotless luxury Escalade perched like a confused white rhinoceros frozen in deep thought. I lifted a hand in a small, easy wave, the kind of wave you give a neighbor who catches you fixing a fence at sunrise. Calm, ordinary, like this wasn't even the strangest thing in the county this week. He walked toward me with that slow, measured gait older country deputies have, steady enough to tell you he's not surprised by much anymore. His boots thudded softly in the dirt. The radio on his shoulder crackled once and then quieted. Birds made more noise than he did. Behind him, that Escalade looked painfully out of place, glossy white metal against all that honest Nebraska earth. As for me, I stood there with my thumbs hooked into my belt, doing my best not to smile. I wasn't triumphant. I wasn't spiteful. Mostly, I was relieved. Relieved that after months of nonsense, something had finally forced this whole mess into the daylight. The deputy stopped beside me, squinting at the setup, the soft straps under the rear frame, the way the weight settled safely without stressing the vehicle. He let out a sigh older men make when something is stupid enough to be impressive. "Well," he said slowly, "that's different." I nodded. "Yes, sir, but it's stable, no damage, and every second of how it got there is on camera." He didn't talk right away. Instead, he tilted his head like he was trying to decide whether to laugh or write a report. Then he breathed out long and low. "All right," he said, "start from the beginning." And I could have told him right there, but that's not how this story works. You don't understand the ending unless you know exactly where the cracks first started forming. So, if you really want to understand why Karen's Escalade is sitting up there like a museum exhibit, you'll have to go back with me. Back before the tractor, before the straps, before the ditch. Back to the very first morning I ever saw that woman step onto my land. That's where it all began. Most folks think trouble walks up to your front door with stomping boots. But truth is, it starts softer, a little at a time, long before the shouting, the lawyers, the flashing lights. My trouble began long before Karen ever set her designer heels on my property. It started the day I walked away from my old life. I spent 25 years in logistics management, the kind of job where you're never done, never caught up, and always one signature away from another crisis. Conference rooms with stale coffee, phones that never stopped ringing, clients who thought urgent meant demand a miracle before lunch. Burnout wasn't the right word. It was closer to erosion, slow, steady, unrelenting. I'd wake up exhausted, go to bed exhausted, and somewhere in between pretend I was fine. Then one day, I wasn't pretending anymore. I remember sitting at my desk, staring at a stack of shipping reports so tall it felt like it blocked out the sun. My hands were shaking, my chest felt hollow. I realized I couldn't keep living like that. So, I quit. I cashed out some retirement, sold my condo in the city, and when this 80-acre parcel in rural Nebraska came up for sale, outside any HOA, far from traffic, noise, and rules made by people with clipboards, I signed the papers so fast the ink barely dried. I still remember the first morning I woke up here. The silence wasn't empty. It was comforting. The creek murmured along the eastern line of the property. The cattle moved slow and gentle through the pasture. The wind carried the smell of soil instead of diesel fumes. For the first time in decades, I felt like my lungs worked again. I told myself I'd never take this peace for granted. Turns out, life heard me, and decided to test that promise. It was a Tuesday when I heard the sound that didn't belong. A purring engine, smooth, expensive, humming somewhere down my farm road. At first, I figured maybe someone got lost. Happens sometimes. Delivery drivers miss the turn and end up on my land, trying to find someone's cousin's house 3 miles away. But when I rounded the corner by the soybean rows, I didn't see a lost driver. I saw a white Escalade, big, shiny, parked sideways across my farm road like it was posing for a magazine. A woman sat inside, holding her phone out in front of her, adjusting it this way and that like she was trying to catch a rare eclipse. Except it was 9:15 in broad daylight. I walked toward the SUV with slow, easy steps, hands in my pockets, calm as could be. No reason to get worked up over nothing. As I got closer, she glanced at me over her sunglasses, not fully, just enough to confirm I was, in fact, a human being approaching her. Her expression didn't say, sorry. It said, why are you here? I cleared my throat politely. Morning. Can I help you with something? She tilted her head slightly, like she was annoyed the morning sun had dared to shine through her window at the same time I had. No, I'm fine. Her tone could have cut ice. Well, I said gently, this is private property, farm road. I've got cattle trailers and equipment coming through. Can't really have folks parking here. She gave a tiny dismissive wave. Oh, I won't be long. This is the only spot with good 5G. I need to live stream some HOA business. She said HOA business like it was a federal mission. I kept my voice even. Still, you'll need to move. There's no easement here. That got her attention. She lowered her sunglasses, not all the way, just enough to let me know the next thing she said would be coded in condescension, thick as molasses. You must be new, she said, and I felt something inside me tighten, just a touch. New. I'd worked this land every morning for years. I'd rebuilt fences with my own hands. I'd bottle-fed calves at 3 a.m. I'd walked every inch of this property in snow, mud, and heat. But to her, the woman who'd known this area for maybe 6 years at most, I was new. I forced a calm breath. No, ma'am, I'm not new. I've owned this land a long while, and there's no easement. She smiled, sharp, polite, empty. Well, the HOA has historical access. It's always been that way. You'll figure it out. And just like that, she looked back at her phone, dismissed me, on my own land. The wind rustled through the corn behind me. A hawk cried overhead. Somewhere in the pasture, a calf bawled for its mother. But in that moment, the only sound I really heard was the quiet crack of something breaking. Not the land, not a fence, me. I knew right then that woman was going to be trouble. If Karen had simply driven away that first morning, maybe all this would have ended before it began. But people like her don't stop after winning once. They come back to make sure the world stays tilted in their favor. 2 days later, I was working the west fence line, tightening wires the windstorm had loosened. The air was calm, cattle grazing softly behind me, the kind of morning that settles your heartbeat. Nothing dramatic, nothing loud. Then I heard it again. That polished, humming engine. The kind of engine you only hear on a luxury vehicle designed for grocery stores, not dirt roads. I turned, and there it was, the white Escalade, easing down my farm road like it had a reserved parking spot. Same exact place, same exact angle, right under the only stretch of shade cast by my old windbreak oak. Not by accident, by choice. She was parked there with her seat fully reclined, one hand idly swirling a cold drink in a stainless cup, condensation dripping down the side. Her AC was running high enough I could hear it from 20 feet away, and with her other hand, she was filing her nails, not live streaming, not handling some emergency, just pampering herself on my property, under my tree, enjoying my shade, because it was convenient. And that little image, that one selfish moment, somehow irritated me more than the parking itself. I walked toward her, slower this time, like a man hoping, just hoping, maybe she had a reasonable explanation. She spotted me through her sunglasses and gave a sigh deep enough I could practically hear her eyeballs rolling behind the lenses. I stopped at her window. "Ma'am," I said evenly, "we talked about this." She didn't take off her sunglasses, didn't sit up, didn't even mute her music, some soft pop instrumental that absolutely did not belong on a Nebraska farm morning. Instead, she took a light sip from her chilled drink, clicked her nails against the metal cup, and replied, "I told you, this is a long-established access path. Perfectly legal, perfectly normal." I pointed toward the big private property sign not 10 feet away. "There is no easement here." This time she finally looked at me, chin raised, annoyance settling over her like perfume. "Well, the developer told us we have access," she said. "I'm sure it's on a map somewhere. I don't have time to argue semantics with you." That phrasing, semantics, was her way of saying property rights were just details, and details were beneath her. I breathed slow, tried reason again. "You can enter Meadowbrook through the main highway. It's 3 miles around, not far." She waved her nail file dismissively. "That road is ugly, too much traffic, and no shade. Here I get service, shade, and quiet." She took another slow sip. "It's perfectly harmless." Harmless. Her comfort came first. My land, my cattle, my fences, secondary, if that. Still, I kept my voice calm. "This road is in use. Equipment comes through here. I can't have cars blocking access." She gave me a smile so thin it was practically an insult. "You really shouldn't get worked up over a little parking." She adjusted her seat back another inch. "Don't make things difficult." That word again. Difficult. Not a threat, but a warning. A promise that if I didn't bend, she would push. It hit me then. This wasn't about 5G, or shade, or convenience. This wasn't even about the road. It was about the little thrill she got from bending something that didn't belong to her. From being where she wasn't supposed to be. From flaunting the rules because no one had ever forced her to face them. I stepped back, hands on my belt buckle, breathing slower. "All right," I said softly. "You've made your point. I'll handle this another way." She smirked. She actually smirked. Then she went right back to filing her nails under the cool hum of the AC. I turned toward the fence line, each step heavier than the last. Behind me, the Escalade idled in the shade like a smug white animal, claiming a spot that wasn't its own. I didn't say another word. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't threaten or argue. But as I walked, I realized something important. Some people don't push boundaries because they need to. They push them because they enjoy watching you tolerate it. And Karen had just made it very clear she planned to push until something, or someone, pushed back. 2 weeks passed, and her visits formed a pattern. Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, always around the same time, always the same spot, always under my shade tree like it was her personal canopy. Her AC ran full blast. Her cold drinks clinked in stainless cups. Her seat stayed reclined just enough to be insulting. Sometimes she live-streamed, sometimes she filed her nails, sometimes she just sat there, soaking up the comfort she didn't pay for, on land she didn't own. And every conversation with her circled back to the same script. "You can't park here. This is community access. There is no community access. I don't have time to argue." It was like arguing with a brick wall dipped in expensive perfume. Still, I kept my calm, right up until the afternoon she crossed the line. It was late June. Wind carried the scent of warm corn stalks, and I had been hauling feed bags to the barn. The tractor was parked off to the side, engine off, keys in my pocket, cooling in the sun. That's when it hit. A long, angry blast of a horn. Not a little beep, not a polite nudge. A blast, loud enough to rattle my barn doors. I froze with a feed bag on my shoulder. The cattle jerked their heads up, eyes wide. A few calves scrambled, one bawled. Cows don't like sudden noise, especially pregnant heifers. And I knew instantly who it was. I rounded the corner, boots kicking dust, and saw Karen's Escalade angled sideways, blocking the entire road. She had one hand on the horn, the other waving in the air like she was calling room service. Her window rolled down halfway. "You need to move your tractor," she barked. I blinked. "My tractor is parked," I said slowly. "Engine's off. Keys are in my pocket." She huffed dramatically. "Well, I honked, obviously." And right there, in my head, the thought snapped across my mind like a dry twig. Did she expect the damn thing to sprout legs and walk away because she made noise? I took a breath to keep my voice even. You scared my cattle. They're cows, she said, flipping her hand. They'll get over it. Before I could answer, the sound hit. A sharp metallic clang followed by a low, pained bellow. My heart dropped. I turned and saw her, one of my best heifers, pressed against the far trough. I watched, helpless, as she pulled herself upright and limped away, favoring her back left leg. She'd slammed her flank hard against the metal edge. Not a fright, not a stumble, a real injury to a pregnant animal. That did something to me. Not rage, not outburst, something deeper. A kind of cold, heavy anger men don't show on their faces because it sinks too far inside their chest. I turned back to Karen. She's hurt, I said quietly. Karen lifted her sunglasses just enough to glance in the heifer's direction. She looks fine, she said. Then she shrugged. You're being dramatic. I stared at her, at the way she reclined further in her seat, perfectly relaxed under the shade of my tree, perfectly indifferent to the animal limping in the dirt. Karen, I said, voice low, you need to move your vehicle. She smiled, a bright, fake, dismissive smile. Don't make things difficult. That word again. Difficult. Like my effort to protect livestock, property, and peace of mind was some petty inconvenience blocking her comfort. She shifted into drive and rolled away, AC humming, as though nothing had happened. But something had happened. Not on the land, not on the road, inside me. I watched the dust rise behind her Escalade and settle back down slower than my heartbeat. That heifer's limp carved itself into my mind, and so did Karen's indifference. That was the exact moment, the clean, sharp, irreversible moment, when I knew Karen wasn't going to stop, and so I decided that I would. No more hints. No more gentle reminders. No more hoping she'd figure it out on her own. Her habit had become a threat, and a threat needs an answer. The morning after the horn incident, I was up before sunrise. Not because I wanted to be, but because worry has a way of dragging a man out of bed before his body agrees. When I stepped out onto the porch, the air carried the heavy sweetness of damp earth. The pasture was quiet, which wasn't right. A good morning has a rhythm, soft chewing, low calls, calves nudging their mothers. But that morning, the rhythm felt broken. The injured heifer stood apart from the herd, head low, shifting her weight off her back left leg. From a distance I could see it. She wasn't just startled, she was hurting. I grabbed a halter, slipped on my gloves, and walked to her slow. She limped toward me, trusting me more than her own legs could manage. That's not good, girl, I murmured, resting my hand on her neck. I called Dr. Patterson, the only large animal vet within 40 miles, who treated both cattle and stubborn landowners with the same patience. He said he'd be right out. Dr. Patterson arrived in his old dented vet truck. No nonsense, no small talk. He walked straight to the heifer, ran his hands along her flank, pressed gently down her leg. She winced, shuddered, limped away half a step. Yeah, he said quietly, she hit that trough harder than you realized. Ligaments are strained, might have cracked along the socket edge. I felt something tighten behind my ribs. She's 6 months along, I said. He nodded. Exactly. Too much pain, too much stress. That can trigger early labor, or complications. You know the game. I knew it too well. A pregnant heifer isn't just livestock. She's an investment. Genetics, future calves, years of planning and breeding. And more than anything, she's my responsibility. Dr. Patterson gave her an anti-inflammatory injection, then turned to me. What happened? Somebody leaning on a horn like they needed the whole world to hear them. He sighed and shook his head. Well, you need to fix that. He didn't mean the heifer. He meant Karen. After he left, I headed to the house and grabbed the old deed folder. Thick, worn, packed with every scrap of paper tied to my property. Surveys, tax records, plat maps, historical descriptions, land agreements, everything. I spread them across the kitchen table like a man preparing for war. If Karen believed Meadowbrook Estates had some kind of historic right of way, I needed proof, real proof, that she was wrong. So I read, line by line, clause by clause. And there it was, clear as day. No easements, express or implied. No access rights granted. No ingress or egress agreements. Nothing. Not one reference to any shared path, community access, or developer rights. This land was mine, period. But arguing with Karen wasn't going to solve anything. Facts didn't matter to people who relied on entitlement as oxygen. I needed something stronger than common sense. I needed Jim Sutton, my lawyer. Jim's office sat above the hardware store in town. Small, quiet, honest. He looked up when I walked in. "Marcus," he said, "you look worn." "Just tired of nonsense," I replied, dropping the folder on his desk. "I need answers." He went through the papers with a slow, careful thoroughness only old-school lawyers have. After 10 minutes, he closed the file and leaned back. "No easement," he said flatly. "No access, no shared road agreements. Nothing she's claiming is real. So, she's trespassing every time? Every single time. And how do I stop her?" Jim sighed, rubbing his brow. "You're not dealing with someone who cares about boundaries. You're dealing with someone who thinks rules are suggestions. That means you need documentation. Photos, dates, warnings, witnesses. If this goes to court, we want a mountain behind us, not a hill." "I've been keeping notes," I said. "Good," he replied. "Keep everything. And Marcus, if she injured your heifer, that's damages. Serious damages. This is no longer just a property matter." The weight of it all settled on me, quiet but heavy. I nodded, shook Jim's hand, and walked out. As I drove back toward the farm, the road stretched long and empty, but something in the horizon made me slow down. Dark clouds were stacking over the western tree line, thick, bruised purple clouds with a strange, dull green along the edges, the kind of storm sky old farmers recognize before the first drop falls. The air felt charged, uneasy, like the land was bracing for something. Dr. Patterson's words echoed in my head. Too much stress can trigger early labor. I gripped the steering wheel harder. If that heifer went into labor tonight, if the weather turned rough, if I needed to haul her to Patterson's barn, I prayed to God that road, my road, would be clear. Storms out here don't sneak in quietly. They announce themselves. By sundown, the western sky looked like bruised steel, purple clouds stacked like mountains. Lightning strobed behind them, silent but threatening. The air smelled like rain, metal, and the kind of electricity that raises the hairs on your arms. I checked the injured heifer one more time. She was pacing, restless, sides heaving. I didn't like the look in her eyes. By 9 p.m., the first waves of wind slammed the barn hard enough to rattle the rafters. Then came the rain, slicing sideways, heavy enough to drown sound. I found her lying on her side in the mud, legs rigid, moaning through clenched breath. I checked. She was in labor. Early. Too early. And the calf was breech. No amount of wishing or praying fixes a breech alone. I grabbed my phone, called Dr. Patterson. "Load her up," he said. "I'll have everything ready." I did exactly that. It took all the strength I had to coax her up the ramp, her body trembling under the strain. Rain hammered the metal roof of the trailer like gunfire. "Stay with me, girl," I murmured. I climbed into the truck, put it in gear, and headed toward the front road. And stopped dead. Her Escalade, sideways, blinking hazards, blocking everything, in the middle of a historic storm. I slammed the brakes, mud splashed up over the hood. I honked once, twice, a third time. She didn't move. I stepped out into blinding rain, clothes soaked in seconds, mud sucking at my boots. I reached her window, lightning flashing behind her like a camera shutter from God himself. She cracked her window 2 inches. "Do you mind?" she snapped. "I'm trying to check the flood levels." "I have a heifer in labor," I shouted. "I need to get through." She blinked, looked past me, shrugged. "It's just a cow." That sentence. It didn't just anger me. It hollowed something out. "Move your vehicle," I said, voice low. "My tires are not going into that mud," she said. "I'm staying put until this stops." Lightning cracked behind her. She flinched, then rolled the window up, locked her doors, turned her heater on, reclined her seat, 10 feet away from a pregnant animal in agony. I stood there in the rain, chest heaving, water running down my face like boiling shame. In the trailer, the heifer moaned, long, deep, pained, a sound no rancher ever forgets. I ran back, opened the trailer door, and my heart dropped. She was down on her side, legs kicking weakly, eyes rolled back. The calf was coming wrong, pushing from the wrong angle, threatening to kill them both if I didn't act. I grabbed my phone, called Patterson. Where are you? Blocked. By who? A woman who thinks her SUV is allergic to mud. He went silent, then said, voice rough, Marcus, if you don't get that calf turned, you're going to lose both. I know. Can you do it? I looked at the heifer, at the storm, at the blinking hazards of the Escalade. I don't have a choice. Lightning cracked again. I hung up. I climbed into the trailer, mud covering my knees, rain pouring in sideways. The heifer groaned, her whole body seizing, her tail lifted weakly. All right, girl, I whispered, hands trembling, breath shaking. It's just you and me. I reached in, found the back legs, wrong angle, wrong rotation, deadly. The storm roared like a jet engine around us. Thunder rolled over the land. Rain slammed the metal walls, but I kept working. I braced her hips with my shoulder, twisted the calf gently, inch by inch, fought the pull of her contractions, pressed, shifted, pulled. Lightning flashed again, illuminating everything in stark, horrifying clarity. Me in a mud-soaked trailer, a heifer screaming, blood mixing with rainwater, and 10 feet away, Karen sitting comfortable in a warm Escalade, clicking through her phone like nothing in the world mattered. I got the calf turned, barely. Then I pulled, hard. The heifer kicked once, weakly, and with a final push and a groan deep enough to shake the earth beneath us, the calf slid out into my arms, lifeless. My heart dropped. Come on, I whispered, rubbing its rib cage. Come on. I cleared the nose, pressed its chest, rubbed again, harder. Lightning flashed. Thunder shook the trailer. Then, a cough, a wheeze, a tiny stubborn gasp. The calf moved. It's all right, I whispered, choking on relief. You're all right. The heifer let out a soft, exhausted groan. I sat there in the trailer, soaked, bleeding, shaking, holding a newborn calf in a storm, while 10 feet away, Karen didn't lift a finger. No miracle, no luck, just work, pain, and the kind of resolve no HOA meeting has ever produced. When I finally carried the calf to the barn and got the heifer settled, the storm had weakened enough to drive, but the truth was already set. Karen didn't just block a road. She blocked life and death. She blocked duty. She blocked the one thing no rancher takes lightly, the responsibility to protect what's yours. And that night, standing under a flickering barn light, with blood on my sleeves and mud on my boots, I made myself a promise. The next time she parked on my land, I wouldn't move her with words. I'd move her with physics, perfectly, legally, and permanently. I didn't sleep much after that storm, not after pulling a breech calf in the dark, soaked to the bone, praying the whole time that the heifer didn't go down on me. Anyone who's ever delivered livestock by flashlight knows the way it sticks to you. The shaking hands, the adrenaline, the stubborn fear that follows you long after the danger is over. But when the sun finally came up, something in me had shifted, quietly, permanently. I stepped out onto the porch with a mug of coffee, watching steam rise like smoke. The world looked calm, too calm for what had almost happened hours earlier. The heifer was alive, the calf was alive, by effort, not luck. I'd earned that outcome with every bruise the storm gave me. But Karen, she'd earned something too, a reckoning. Because trespassing was one thing. Harming my animals, intentionally or through arrogance, that was the line. And she'd crossed it without a second thought. By mid-morning, while the ground was still wet from the storm, I heard the sound that had become the signature of my frustration. The smooth, smug hum of a luxury SUV rolling where it didn't belong. Karen pulled into the exact same shaded spot under my oak tree. Same angle, same entitlement, same attitude. Head down, sunglasses on, phone in hand, no hesitation, no shame. No awareness of the carnage her horn had helped cause the night before. I didn't stomp toward her. I didn't shout. I didn't do anything emotional. I just watched. And watching her that morning confirmed one thing. She wasn't ignorant. She wasn't confused. She was testing boundaries, mine, and she thought I wasn't strong enough to hold them. That was her mistake. So I started documenting. I took photos from 3 distances, close, mid, and far, making sure the private property sign sat clearly next to her front tire. I photographed tire tracks, angles of obstruction, the position of her SUV. I didn't bother talking to her yet. Evidence first, conversation later. Then I walked back to the barn, opened my toolbox, and pulled out my body camera, the same one I used to record calving problems for insurance and breeding logs. I clipped it to my shirt and let it run. When I approached her window, she barely looked up. "Oh my God, what now?" she muttered, scrolling her phone. "I'm documenting trespassing," I said, calm as a stone. "This isn't trespassing. The developer told us we could use this road. The developer doesn't own my land," she shrugged, annoyed. "Well, I'm sure it's on some map somewhere. I don't have time to argue semantics with you." Her words weren't confident. They were careless, lazy, the kind of laziness that only comes when someone has been coddled their whole life. "I'll call the sheriff," I said. She rolled her eyes hard enough to sprain something. "Go ahead." So I did. I put the phone on speaker. Let her hear every word. "This is Marcus Chen. I have a repeat trespasser refusing to leave my private property, requesting a deputy to document." She looked irritated, not scared, not remorseful, just inconvenienced. She thought calling the law made her powerful. She had no idea it made me untouchable. When I hung up, I walked straight back to the barn, not pacing, not slamming tools, just moving with purpose. Because this time, I wasn't reacting. I was preparing. I laid out everything on my workbench. Soft toe straps, padded recovery sling, 2 choke-free tie-down loops, locking clevis, poly rope for stabilization, all legal, all safe, all designed to lift without damaging metal or plastic. Nothing she could sue me for, nothing a judge could fault. Then I walked out to the old oak tree. I ran my hands along the main fork, thick as a whiskey barrel, the kind of wood that had weathered tornado seasons long before I was born. Its roots ran deep, tied straight into the aquifer. That tree had held tire swings, 2 grown farmhands once on a dare, and a storm shelter door during the blizzard of '09. It could hold the rear end of a spoiled woman's SUV without breaking a sweat. I paced out distances, measured where her tires usually landed, and dropped small survey flags, subtle markers she'd never notice. The geometry lined up perfectly. She had given me a predictable routine, and predictable routines make perfect traps, a legal trap, one she'd walk right into. Deputy Trujillo arrived about 15 minutes later. Older boots, calm walk, no nonsense. He looked at her SUV, then at me. "Morning, Marcus." "Morning, Deputy." He leaned down toward Karen's window. "Ma'am, you've been advised before. This is private property." She lifted her chin. "Well, the developer said," he cut her off gently, "developers can't grant access to land they don't own." Her confidence flickered. "That's one warning," he said. "Next one's a citation." She huffed, turned the key, and pulled away with theatrical slowness, like she hoped her departure would hurt me somehow. It didn't. It confirmed everything I needed. When she was gone, Trujillo turned back to me. "You pressing charges yet?" "Not yet." "You building a case?" I nodded. "Smart," he said. "Call me if she comes back." "Oh," I replied quietly, looking at the ruts she'd left behind. "She'll be back." And when she came back, it wouldn't be for shade or signal or convenience. Not this time. She'd come back out of spite, to prove I couldn't stop her, to show she still had power. She was wrong. Because the next time she parked here, she wouldn't be leaving on her own wheels. Deputy Trujillo hadn't even finished kicking the mud off his boots before I knew, absolutely knew, that Karen wouldn't let the morning end without trying to take back control. People like her don't retreat. They regroup. And at 3:40 that afternoon, the regrouping arrived in full parade, her white Escalade leading the way, followed by a silver Lexus, a navy blue BM, and a spotless Mercedes. The HOA cavalry. They pulled in like they were surveying new land for a shopping mall. Karen stepped out in oversized sunglasses, chin high, flanked by 3 of the most self-important suburban soldiers I'd ever seen. The red-haired woman had a clipboard. The golf shirt guy had the posture of a man who's been wrong his entire life, but still argues. And the tall man with the lanyard held his phone like he was filming a documentary called How HOAs Saved America. Karen crossed her arms like a queen inspecting peasants. "Marcus, we're here to resolve a community access issue." I let the silence stretch. I wanted them all to hear the wind, the creak of the oak tree, the emptiness around us, all the things a real ranch respects. "Community access to what?" I finally asked. "My driveway?" The clipboard lady stepped forward with the confidence of someone who once won an argument on Facebook. The developer told us this road was part of the subdivision's emergency overflow route. If homeowners need access, you cannot obstruct it. No developer owns this land, I said. No easement, deed is crystal clear. Karen lifted her chin. It's on a map somewhere. I don't need to justify myself to you. I pointed to my chest. You're standing on my property. That made the golf shirt man scoff. Buddy, why don't you calm down? I turned my head slowly. I'm not your buddy. And you're trespassing. The lanyard man hit record on his phone. For legal purposes, he said. I tapped my body cam. Same. Karen inhaled like she was about to perform Shakespeare. This is the kind of harassment I've been dealing with, she declared to the phones. I'm scared to drive past this man's land. He yells. He threatens. I laughed. Clean, quiet, and real. You got any of that on video? Her mouth clicked shut. She switched tactics instantly. Entitlement shapeshifts when cornered. This road is unsafe, she snapped. I'm leaving my vehicle here as evidence. My eyebrows rose. Evidence of what? You parking illegally? She ignored the question entirely, turned to her HOA entourage, and announced, I'm documenting this obstruction for our attorney. My dash cam is running, and if anyone touches my vehicle, I'll sue them into bankruptcy. The clipboard woman nodded like a bobblehead. Yes, Karen, leave it. Let the court see the situation exactly as it is. The lanyard guy chimed in. Right, it establishes a clear timeline of events. I looked at all four of them. Polished shoes sinking into my dirt, fancy watches catching the sunlight, city arrogance radiating off them like heat. Well, I said softly, that's a mistake. Karen sneered. No, Marcus. The mistake is you thinking this little farm of yours makes you untouchable. You're one man. We're a whole community. She walked to the Escalade, grabbed her purse, locked the doors with an obnoxious double beep, and tossed her keys into her bag like she was sealing a coffin. Then she pointed a finger at me. You touch my SUV, you're done. I'll bury you in court. I didn't flinch. I won't have to touch it, I said. Not the way you think. She rolled her eyes. Come on, she barked to her entourage. We'll finish this at the HOA office. We're filing for an emergency injunction tonight. The Mercedes driver opened his door for her. She got in, slamming it just a little harder than necessary. The slam of someone who thinks they've won. The other HOA members piled into the Lexus and BM, started their engines, and rolled off my land without a second glance at the Escalade. The last thing Karen shouted out the window as they pulled away was, "Leave my vehicle alone," and then she was gone, leaving behind $90,000 worth of luxury metal, parked at the exact angle I'd measured the day before, directly beneath the oak tree fork I'd tested with my own weight, with the rear axle lined up like it had been guided into place by divine intervention. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. I stood there watching their taillights fade, hands resting lightly on my hips, feeling something settle inside me. Not anger, not adrenaline, but clarity. She believed the threat of a lawsuit would freeze me. She believed her dash cam protected her. She believed I'd be too scared to lay a finger near that Escalade. She didn't understand the difference between damage and immobilization. She didn't understand physics. She didn't understand leverage. She didn't understand farmers. And she sure as hell didn't understand me. Because now, her SUV wasn't just trespassing. It was abandoned property blocking an emergency route I actually used. And tonight, while Karen drafted fake legal threats and sipped herbal tea in her HOA meeting room, I would be preparing the safest, cleanest, most legally airtight vehicle relocation in county history. No dents, no scratches, no broken trim, just gravity, straps, and good old-fashioned mechanical advantage. Tomorrow morning, when the sheriff arrived, Karen's Escalade wouldn't be where she left it. It would be right where her arrogance put it, up off the ground. I didn't start right away. When the HOA convoy vanished over the rise, I didn't go straight for the straps or the tractor. That's not how you handle something this delicate. Not when the margin between legal genius and criminal mischief is only a few inches of scratched paint. Instead, I walked the perimeter of the Escalade first. Slow, methodical, just a man inspecting a situation he didn't ask for. Her SUV sat under the oak like a white rhinoceros that wandered into the wrong watering hole. The glossy paint still had droplets from last night's storm. The chrome trim reflected the fading sun. And the rear axle, well, it lined up exactly where I'd hoped it would. Good. Very good. I took out my phone and started filming. "Documenting abandoned vehicle blocking private access," I said calmly into the mic. "Owner left site voluntarily. Sheriff was notified earlier today of ongoing trespassing." I walked a slow circle around the SUV. No dents, no scratches, no prior damage to confuse tomorrow's story. I made sure my camera caught every angle: hood, bumper, door panels, wheel wells, license plate. Then I switched to my body cam and let it run continuously. Evidence first, action second. Before touching a strap, I walked to the old oak. You don't rely on memory for something like this. You check, really check. I pressed both hands against the thick fork I planned to use, solid as the day God planted it. I'd seen that fork hold a storm shelter door through a blizzard, and once, back in '09, 2 full-grown ranch hands who decided beer made them weightless. I grabbed the fork and hung my entire body weight from it. It didn't budge. "The tree can handle it," I said aloud. "Now it's up to me not to screw it up." I paced out the axle line again, checked the ground slope, and checked the mud consistency under the front tires. The shallow ditch would cradle the front wheels without stressing the suspension. The stump on the other side would serve as a perfect rest point once the rear lifted. Nothing sharp. Nothing that could gouge the undercarriage. Nothing that could be blamed on me later. Everything safe. Everything controlled. I nodded to myself. Time to begin. I carried the gear out from the barn like a surgeon laying out instruments. Soft polyester recovery straps, 2 axle wrap tie-down loops, a padded sling, a locking clevis, and a short poly lead line for stabilization. Every tool was chosen with one goal: immobilize without causing damage. I knelt behind the Escalade. The grass was still damp, and a tiny mosquito buzzed around my ear. Even nature paused to watch. "All right, girl," I muttered to the SUV. "Let's get you tucked in." I looped the first axle strap around the rear differential housing, exactly where the metal was strongest and designed to handle towing force. I fed the strap through itself, pulled it snug, then ran the padded section underneath to protect the chassis. No metal-to-metal contact, no friction points, no stress on plastic. Then I placed the second strap, a mirror image on the opposite side. Next came the main recovery strap. I clipped the soft loops to the clevis, tightened it just enough to secure, but not enough to pinch. Then I gave each connection a hard pull. Everything held. I filmed the entire setup from multiple angles. If Karen ever claimed I'd damaged her SUV, the footage would prove she was lying before the sentence left her mouth. My old John Deere isn't pretty, but it's strong, stronger than any HOA president's ego. I climbed into the seat, turned the key, and the diesel engine rumbled to life like an old bull clearing its throat. Before moving an inch, I filmed the loader bucket. Smooth, rounded edges, nothing sharp. I lined the tractor up, facing the rear of the Escalade, easing forward until the recovery strap took up tension. Using the front loader gave me the advantage I needed: complete visibility and millimeter-perfect hydraulic control. I wasn't risking a blind lift from behind. This was precision work. I lifted the loader a few inches. The straps rose. The Escalade's suspension compressed, then lifted a hair. Perfect. I didn't want to jerk it. I wanted a slow, gentle rise. So I inched the loader upward, letting the rear wheels lighten, until finally, with a dull, soft sigh of released weight, the rear wheels left the ground. 2 inches, then 4, then 6. Just enough. I stopped, locked the hydraulics. The Escalade hung like it was frozen mid-jump. Not swinging, not straining, just hovering. I stepped out of the tractor to check the straps one last time. Zero pressure on the bumper. Zero contact with paint. The rear wheels drifted freely above the ground. The front wheels sat deep in the ditch, perfectly angled, unable to move an inch. The SUV wasn't damaged. It was simply defeated. But I didn't want the SUV dangling all night. That invites wind sway and strap stretch. So I climbed back in and guided the loader forward an inch at a time until the rear of the Escalade hovered directly above the broad, flat stump I'd chosen earlier. A stump wide as a dinner table, smooth from years of weather, stable as bedrock. I lowered the loader slowly, letting the rear of the SUV settle onto the stump like a child being set on a chair. When the weight shifted fully, I unhooked the straps from the tractor bucket, leaving them securely wrapped around the axle and the tree fork to prevent sliding. Then I backed the tractor away and drove it into the barn. The result? Beautiful. Rear wheels completely off the ground, front wheels sunk. SUV balanced perfectly on a stump, like some bizarre 90,000 coffee table. Even a tow truck would need 20 minutes to figure out where to start. I stepped back, wiped my hands on my jeans, and took a long, satisfied breath. It wasn't revenge. It was geometry. Around 7:15 the next morning, right on her usual schedule, a car approached fast. Not the Escalade, for obvious reasons. This time it was the silver Lexus. It screeched to a halt. Karen jumped out, red-faced, hair wild. "What did you do?" she screamed. I stood beside the barn, hands in my pockets, sipping my coffee. "Good morning," I said softly. She circled her Escalade in panic. "It's stuck! It's... Oh my God! You vandalized my vehicle!" I shook my head. "Nope, not a scratch. I filmed the whole thing." "I'm calling the police." "They're already on the way," I said. "I called them about an abandoned vehicle blocking my access." Her mouth hung open. The sheriff's Tahoe rolled onto the property. Deputy Trujillo stepped out, calm as a man checking rainfall totals. He walked straight to the Escalade, inspected the setup, touched the bumper, the frame, the straps, the stump, the front wheels. Then he turned to me. "You said there was no damage? Check it yourself." He did, thoroughly. Then he let out a slow whistle. "To be honest," he said, "I've seen tow companies do worse just removing cars from ditches. This is cleaner than a dealership lift." Karen shrieked. "Arrest him! This is theft!" Trujillo raised one hand. "Ma'am, the vehicle is unharmed, and you abandoned it on private property with no easement." She blinked rapidly. Her voice cracked. But, ma'am," he repeated, firmer now, "today you're getting citations, not victories." Her legs buckled. Behind her, the Escalade sat like a monument to her arrogance. Untouched, unharmed, unmovable, and absolutely, undeniably stuck because of her own choices. I folded my arms. "You told me not to touch it," I said quietly. "Be careful what you wish for." Karen didn't drive herself home. She didn't have a vehicle to drive. Her Lexus friend had to practically drag her into the passenger seat as she shrieked at Deputy Trujillo like a kettle left on the stove. But the moment the Lexus disappeared down the gravel road, the whole farm went quiet again. Too quiet. It was the kind of heavy silence that comes before a tornado touches down. I knew that woman wasn't done. People like Karen don't lose gracefully. They don't take a hint. Not from nature, not from truth, not even from the sheriff. They come back, not physically, digitally, and they come back loud. It started at 9:42 p.m. My phone buzzed on the kitchen table, a text from a neighbor. "You seen this? She's gone nuclear." Attached was a link. I clicked it. Up popped a TikTok video, shaky, vertical, Karen's face smeared with mascara, hair plastered against her forehead like she'd melted under stress. The title read in bold red letters, "Evil farmer holds my car hostage." I sighed, took a sip of black coffee, and hit play. Karen sniffled into the camera. "He trapped me," she said, her voice trembling in that dramatic, insincere way only a seasoned liar could manage. "He used his massive tractor to lift my Escalade into a tree. My babies could have been in that car. What kind of monster does that?" She turned the camera on herself, angling it so the porch lights of her home gave her an angelic glow. Behind her, on the wall, hung one of those tacky Hobby Lobby signs, "Family above all." The irony almost choked me. "He's threatened me before," she continued, voice rising. "He attacked me today and I barely escaped. He's dangerous. Please share this so authorities can stop him." The video ended with her crying into her hands, careful to make sure the ring light caught every teardrop. Karen was many things, but subtle was not one of them. Within an hour, the video had 80,000 views. The comments were hammering me. "What a psycho! Throw that farmer in jail! Who does he think he is?" A lesser man might have fired back, posted a rant, argued with strangers, but I didn't. I sat there watching the comments roll in, letting them burn their outrage early. People like Karen count on emotional reactions. They thrive on chaos. But I'm a farmer. I know how to wait. I waited until 11:03 p.m. Then, I uploaded one single video, no commentary, no editing, no dramatic narration, just the raw, time-stamped footage from my body cam. It showed everything. It showed Karen blocking the road. It showed me begging her to move so I could save a laboring heifer. It showed her honking like a maniac. It showed her refusing to move during the storm while I stood in the rain. And finally, it showed the moment she abandoned the Escalade voluntarily. Then, I cut to the drone shot, my hands showing the soft straps, the padded lift, the stump, and Deputy Trujillo confirming, "This is cleaner than a dealership lift." I captioned it, full context. It took exactly 4 minutes for the tide to turn. Someone commented, "Hold up, this is totally different from her version." Then another, "Wait, she blocked a man trying to save a pregnant cow, and she left the car there herself?" Then the floodgates opened. "I'm sorry, but this man is a genius. Damn, he lifted that Escalade cleaner than I lift my groceries." The comment section flipped faster than a tractor switch. People were furious, but not at me. By midnight, Karen had turned from victim into meme. Someone clipped my drone shot of the Escalade balanced on the stump and added the text, 90,000 teeter-totter. Another comment read, "Physics, 1, HOA, 0. Karen tried to delete comments, but she couldn't keep up. And just as she was losing the public battle, her private world began to crumble. Around 1 a.m., screenshots of the HOA group chat leaked online. It showed Karen typing in all caps, "No one posts anything. We must present a unified front. He cannot be allowed to win." Another member had replied, "Karen, it's your voice on the video. You lied to us." The collapse was total. But the final nail in the coffin didn't arrive until sunrise. At 6:12 a.m., just as the dawn light stretched across my pasture, my phone buzzed with a new email. The subject line read, "You didn't get this from me." I opened it. Inside were HOA financial spreadsheets and receipts showing Karen had spent thousands of dollars of community funds on spa weekends and personal vehicle maintenance. Attached was a final note from the sender. "I'm the assistant treasurer. I'm done covering for her. Use this. End her." There it was, a gift-wrapped nuke. Around 7:30 a.m., a tow truck finally arrived at the farm. I walked out to the porch to watch. The driver circled the Escalade twice, scratching his head. He walked over to me, squinting. "Sir," he asked, "what in the hell am I looking at?" "Engineering," I said. He laughed so hard he had to brace his hands on his knees. When Karen arrived a moment later, she was hysterical. "Get it down! Just get it down!" she shrieked. The tow truck driver lifted his hat. "Ma'am, I can try, but if I scratch even a single inch of this thing getting it off that stump, you're signing a waiver. This ain't a breakdown. This is an art installation." Karen turned purple. "I am not signing a waiver." "Then I ain't touching it," the driver said. He climbed back into his truck and drove away, leaving Karen screaming into the wind. Her Escalade remained exactly where I put it. By that afternoon, she had deleted her social media accounts. But the internet never forgets, and neither did I. I sat at my dining table and assembled everything. Body cam footage, drone shots, vet receipts, sheriff statements, the whistleblower's financial documents, the leaked chat logs. I put it all into a thick black binder and labeled it, "Incidents Concerning HOA President Karen Salters, Full Record." I placed my hand on the cover and felt a strange, quiet peace. She wanted a war. She forgot that farmers take notes. And now I was ready for court. Courtrooms have a smell to them. Not the smell of fear or sweat like people imagine. That comes later. No, the first thing you smell is old paper, old wood, old secrets. A courtroom doesn't forget anything. It just waits for people to step inside and lie to its face. On the morning of the hearing, I walked through those oak double doors with my binder tucked under my arm. Plain clothes, clean boots, no theatrics. I sat down at the respondent's table, calm, quiet, steady. 5 minutes later, Karen burst through the same doors like a storm blowing in through an open window. Her hair was frazzled, papers spilled out of her purse. A new lawyer, whom she'd clearly hired in a panic, trailed behind her, looking already exhausted. She looked at me like I was the devil himself. I simply tipped my hat. Judge Calloway wasn't a man to waste time. Tall, with silver hair, he wore his glasses on the tip of his nose as if he were perpetually disappointed in humanity. He glanced over both tables, then tapped his pen. "All right," he said. We're here to address the matter of alleged property damage, trespassing, and misuse of association authority. Karen's lawyer stood immediately. Your Honor, my client is the victim of... The judge lifted a hand. Counselor, before we go spinning yarns, I need paperwork. Do you have documentation of an easement granting your client access to the respondent's private agricultural road? Silence. Karen swallowed hard. Well, the developer told us... The judge leaned forward. That wasn't my question. Her lawyer fumbled through a folder that looked suspiciously empty. No official easement, Your Honor, he admitted finally. Judge Calloway nodded once. Noted. Proceed. Then Karen stood up, and that was her undoing. Your Honor, she said, voice trembling, he trapped my luxury vehicle. He hung it from a tree. He terrorized me. The judge adjusted his glasses. Ms. Salters, the sheriff's report states the vehicle sustained no damage. Is that correct? Karen hesitated. The truth caught in her throat. Yes, but... And the report also states you abandoned the car on his property voluntarily after blocking the road during a livestock emergency. Correct? Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. I don't recall the exact... Ms. Salters. One stern look shut her down. The judge turned to me. Mr. Chen, do you have evidence to present? I lifted the binder with both hands. It was thick, heavy. Truth always is. Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to submit a chronological record. I walked forward. My boots echoed once across the floor. I placed the binder gently in front of him. He flipped it open. Page 1, date, time, photographs of Karen blocking the road. Page 2, video stills of her honking during the storm. Page 3, body cam timestamps. Page 4, drone footage of the Escalade sitting neatly on the stump. The courtroom was dead silent except for the sound of the judge's slow, deliberate page-turning. Karen's breathing grew ragged. Her lawyer sank lower and lower in his chair. Then Judge Calloway got to the section labeled HOA Financial Records, Unauthorized Expenditures. He raised an eyebrow. Who provided these? I answered plainly, the assistant treasurer, voluntarily. Karen's face drained of color. Inside the binder were records of HOA funds used for her landscaping, receipts for board wellness retreats at a luxury spa, and a PDF where Karen outlined a plan to pressure the farmer via access interference. The judge took off his glasses. Ms. Salters, is this your signature? I didn't... It was a draft. He closed the binder, firmly. Judge Calloway straightened his robe. I see no evidence of wrongdoing by Mr. Chen. I see abundant evidence of harassment, misrepresentation of authority, and reckless endangerment by the HOA president. He paused, not for drama, but for clarity. Therefore, the HOA is ordered to cease any claims over Mr. Chen's property immediately. Furthermore, Ms. Salters is fined for false reporting and unlawful interference. She is also ordered to cover the full cost of the specialized crane required to remove her vehicle from the respondent's land. Karen gasped. Finally, the judge continued, tapping the financial documents, I am forwarding these records to the district attorney's office for review regarding potential embezzlement. Until that investigation is complete, Ms. Salters is barred from holding any HOA leadership position. Karen choked on a sob. Her lawyer put a hand on her shoulder, but she jerked away. This isn't fair, she cried. He humiliated me. He ruined me. Judge Calloway spoke the final sentence without looking up. No, Ms. Salters, you did that to yourself. His gavel hit the desk. Sharp, final. Karen left the courtroom first, red-eyed, shaking, muttering curses into her phone. Her lawyer tried to keep up, but clearly regretted taking the case. The HOA board members who were present avoided her completely. 2 even nodded to me on their way out. Outside, the sun was warm. The wind was gentle. Nothing dramatic, just honest weather and honest land. I drove home slow, the way you drive after surviving something heavy. When I pulled up to the house, the Escalade was gone. A flatbed truck had finally hauled it away an hour prior, at Karen's expense. My heifer stood in the pasture, healthy, her calf wobbling on new legs beside her. Life goes on. I climbed the porch steps, leaned against the post, and watched the field breathe in the afternoon light. After a long, quiet minute, I said aloud, not to anyone, not for anyone, just into the open air. Some folks learn by talking, some learn by warnings, but people like Karen, they only learn when the world finally refuses to move for them. And with that, the farm was peaceful again. No SUVs, no HOA, no drama, just land, just work, just life, finally back in its right place.